I have the opportunity to talk about student engagement strategies. And I just want to share with you, first off, where I have gotten about 75% of my content for this discussion this morning. It comes off of our APU website, a teaching resource that we have. If you were to go to the home page of apu.edu, just when you first log on and you go to a home page, you'll see a screen that looks relatively similar to this. I happen to be on academics, and that's an option that's up here across the top toolbar. I want to bring this to your attention because as educators, there's resources available to us that are little known, actually, from what I'm finding out speaking to many of my colleagues and certainly many of our adjuncts. So I want to bring this to everyone's attention. And I understand some of you are very familiar with this. Those of you that aren't, let's check some fun things out here. I'm under academics. I've already clicked on academics. This is what this page looks like. Quick links, general information, etc. If you go down to faculty resources, whole bunch of faculty resources for us on many different types of teaching content, things that are very, very relevant, both in the classroom and in clinical settings. Center for Teaching, Learning, and Assessment is very helpful. Curricular support, publications from faculty, Faculty Senate information. But I clicked on Innovative Teaching and Technology. Those of us that like to bring a lot of technology into the classroom, there's great tips, opportunities. There's also opportunities if you ever want to be supported in your classroom by someone in our IT department or our educational training faculty development committee. People can come to your class and watch you, observe you, and then provide different tips and feedback for you on how to maybe strengthen your delivery, your content style, things along those lines. But why I like this as a resource, if we go to Teaching Resources, this is where I pulled my content for today. You can sign up for these different emails, blogs to come into your email on a regular basis. The 20-minute mentor commons, very, very helpful for teaching faculty. Faculty focus, very, very helpful. And what are some other ones that I like? Faculty focus, the teaching professor. So this takes you, it links you to a whole bunch of different resources that provide bite-sized information on how to strengthen your teaching, which is really fun. We're all here because we love to share our experiences and information with our students, and we want our students to enjoy that process along with us. That in turn helps us grow as well as professionals. I'm just going to pull one up here, 10 study strategies for students and their teachers. Why not? Let's go for that. This is just random. I have no idea what this is going to look like, but really bite-sized teaching information, very, very helpful. On any given edition, there's a whole bunch of information for you. So in your free time, this is a resource that I want you to, I know we're laughing. This is a resource that I would like you to consider. Know that it's available for you at all times. It's right on our website, just a click away. Great bite-sized pieces of information. And like I said, this is where I've gotten about 75% of my content for today's discussion. And today's discussion happens to be on student engagement and how we help our students through the learning process through our engagement with our students. I have an objective for you, and it actually happens to be question number 1. Describe 2 faculty-student engagement strategies for use in an educational setting. So we'll do that. That's our objective for this session. I think it's kind of funny because I'm here to share with you a couple strategies. There's a textbook, Battling Boredom, 99 strategies. This is just one of the resources that are out there. A lot of the engagement literature right now is surrounding about through the K-12 system. So there's a lot of helpful tips in K-12 to engage students. You can imagine what competition we have for engagement, do we not? I mean, at this given moment, What are we thinking about? Are we thinking about our schedule, our agenda, papers that we have to write, papers that we have to grade? Our kids grew up in an age of social media. Think about all the competing factors. I have a colleague that likes to use the term edutainment. She's not able to stay in front of the classroom without bringing in some level of entertainment into her stories, her delivery, because she knows there's this constant competition for our students' attention. And so the question is, how do we keep not only ourselves engaged in the process, but our students as well? So there's a whole bunch of resources, and the teaching professor faculty focus, they also have a lot of helpful tips and strategies about engagement as well. So anyhow, that's our objective as we move through this. But I want to hear from you, especially after now hearing from Title IX. I get to follow Title IX. What actually does healthy student engagement mean to all of us in this room? How do you think of, or what do you think of when you think of student engagement? What does that mean to you? Participation in classroom discussion. Absolutely. It's probably the number one. Thank you for starting us off. Say active listening. Right, because you could be kind of hearing, but then there's listening, active listening. Good, yeah. Coming prepared is huge, right? It's so hard to be engaged without having prepared, both us as faculty, but our students as well. And we have expectations for that. So a part of what we do in the classroom and or clinical setting is very much about what we know how and what to do as nurses. And I think that's really important. That's one of the main features here is engaging on an individual level, getting personal with our students in a healthy way that Title IX would be very, very pleased with, right? In a supportive, encouraging way that knows our students. Following me, Melinda Dicken is going to be discussing how do we handle difficult student situations. Well, you know what? Those difficult student situations don't need to be nearly as difficult if we've established some form of a rapport and a relationship with our students and getting to know them individually. And so that's a big part of it. So we're going to take just a couple minutes individually here, and I want you to think about a time where you were fully engaged with the educational process, either as an educator, a learner, and then in a lot of educational opportunities, we have to do observation in a classroom, right? It could include you as an observer in another professor's classroom. What does that look like to you? What emotions were brought up? What cognitively, what feelings? So think of a time where you were fully engaged, and we'll have a few minutes where we can do this independently. And then I'd like to share as a group, to recall our experiences of total engagement. So take a couple minutes on your own and think through when you were fully engaged in a teaching, learning sort of situation, either as a student or as the educator. Thank you for sharing. And Lisa brings up a really good point. In academics nowadays, we are surrounded by individuals at all levels, aren't we? We're not just simply working with the 18 to 22-year-old. We're working with people of all ages. That's what makes this so phenomenal and so fun. And everyone's at a different level. Everyone in this room is at a different level and stage and understanding about life and the world. And so our challenge as educators is to reach out and to touch on and address the different needs of our learners. It's so true. And I want to reiterate, too, that the content I'm sharing today, it might feel more appropriate for lecture at times. It might feel more appropriate for clinical. But really, no matter where your main focus, whether it be clinical teaching or in the classroom setting, this has applicability to, no matter where you're at or where you find yourself teaching. And the whole issue of active learning that Lisa also brought up is very, very popular. The whole flipped classroom. Are we familiar with the term flipped classrooms and really increasing the expectations of preparation? Someone said the importance of preparing as equaling engagement. So those are underlying principles here too in this whole process of engagement. And how people prepare is also a different way that we can reach out and engage our students. As much as we have an expectation for our students to be prepared, they have an expectation for us to be prepared as well, don't they? And so when we step into environment, it's important for us to be prepared for whatever kind of content, delivery, expectations that we have moving forward as well. So anyone else wants to share an experience? Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. We do all have our own experiences, and I want this conversation to continue. Find someone else that's a mentor, someone that can mentor you, that can walk through this process with you, that has great ideas. There's a lot of us in this room. So maybe over lunch or carrying on the conversation, even on our faculty website, there's opportunities to message and to contact each other. So I'd love for this conversation to carry on. Thank you for sharing. Formally, I'm just going to read a definition too. And it really addresses what you were just saying, that student engagement is threefold. It is behavioral, it's emotional, and it's cognitive. To encompass all three components of that is how we engage. We engage our students, and another thing that you brought up was the importance of students interacting with other students relationally. And we as faculty have the opportunity to support and encourage that as well. But engagement includes on-task behavior, but it further highlights a central role of students' emotion, cognition, and voice. When engagement is characterized by the full range of on-task behavior, positive emotions, invested cognition, and personal voice, so important in this day and age, it functions as the engine for learning and development. That's from Jay Reeves in 2006, a prominent educator and author, researcher in the field of education. So student engagement is threefold. It incorporates behavioral components, emotional, and cognitive components, exactly what it said. Now, here's a statement too. Students who are engaged are involved, but not all students who are involved are engaged, right? Very interesting. The actual identified components of engagement, being cognitive, emotional, etc., are these four components, and we're going to look at these just a little bit more in depth as we move forward here. But being attentive to what's taking place in the learning environment, whether that's clinical or in a lecture type of situation, being attentive, paying attention to details, being fully aware of the situation, the environment, the words that are being presented in front of you, that's being attentive. And we can see signs of being attentive, can't we? We can see that in other individuals. Think of people that you've had one-on-one conversations with. Are they listening? Are they engaging in eye contact? Are they paying attention to you? Or are they, writing down other things? Are they online shopping in our classrooms? I've seen a few of that. We've updated our Facebook status and different things in the classroom. But that's being attentive, following where the leader, if you will, is going, and actively involved with that. Persistence, I think, is really, really important. I'm going to touch on that in just a minute. Committed. Are we also committed to our students as much as we expect our students to be committed to their process of learning and growth? And committed does have to do with persistence as well. Connected. Are we building stories exactly what was said? Because sometimes, and Lisa did this too, sometimes the material that we have to cover seems so far out there and so irrelevant to the profession of nursing or what the students need to know that sometimes we wonder, how in the world am I going to bridge this gap between black and white words on a page and the reality of practice? Well, how do we bridge that? It's usually through a story. It's that personal story, that personal connection, or having the student share their thoughts or feelings around the topic that's being shared. But there is ways to develop and to bring that connection, to connect with content into real life situations for our students. It's wonderful. And then going back to persistence. Now, persistence is a human characteristic that generally is present for most people in education. Those of us that want to educate ourselves and then educate others, there is a natural level of persistence. However, it doesn't exist for everybody. And we see different levels of that in the classroom. And so one of our challenges is to be there to support and encourage and enhance our students that don't actually have that natural type of persistence. And that's demonstrated, I'm going to bring up this slide too, typical student activities. The student that is fully engaged, they're students that are strategically compliant, ritually compliant, retreatist, and a rebel. So this goes back to that connection and persistence in a way that engagement, number one, we have high attention and high commitment to the task at hand. Now, underneath each one of these slides, and I'll have it uploaded to our Sakai site for it, is a whole bunch of evidence-based practice in the field of education supporting the words on the slide here. I'm not going to get into all of that in the interest of time. However, strategic compliance then is high attention with low commitment to the task. We've seen this in our students, haven't we? You can identify faces of students that we've had over the years that would define each one of this. Ritual compliance, where there's low attention and low commitment to the task at hand. Retreatism, no attention and no commitment. And then rebellion, worst case scenario, right? Diverted attention. So that's where this chart is going. So actually in our engaged, strategically compliant, and then ritually compliant, they actually have very similar types of characteristics that they're involved with in the classroom or clinical learning situation. So they go all the way from create, evaluate, analyze, apply, understand. They can work through all of those categories where the engaged student truly remembers and then takes this to the next level of a self-activity. Where strategically compliant students can recall and sometimes remember the information. They're borderline engaged, but they're also a little bit more aloof, a little bit more distant, maybe doesn't have that emotional connection to the content being delivered. Ritually compliant, and again, each one of these terms are very well defined at the bottom of the slide. They're able, because they're kind of the rule followers, they know the expectations, they know they're supposed to be paying attention and listening. They'll be able to pay attention and recite back to you on a short-term basis. They can remember it short-term. And then we have our retreatist, which learn little, have more of a negative type of displayed attitude, disengages in class. They're quiet, they're aloof, they really haven't found friend groups to work with, maybe even disruptive, where the rebel student, same pieces, but they are actually disruptive. Not only are they themselves disengaged, but they're trying to find other students in the classroom. Misery loves company, right? So they're the ones in the classroom that are trying to corral others. Let's all agree that we're going to be completely disengaged from this and be talkative. The literature indicates these are the ones that are more likely to involve themselves with cheating on exams or plagiarism, things like that. So it's our responsibility to tap into all different types of learners that are given to us, that we are gifted with in either our classroom or clinical environment. And why is that important? It's for everyone's growth and learning. But some of the feedback that we've gotten from our students that helps us understand what it looks like when a faculty member is engaging and engages with their students, what does that look like? So some of the positives that we've gotten as far as feedback is I appreciate when my instructor treats me with respect and dignity. I think everyone that has had some kind of a comment today is able to relate or understand that, right? Validates my questions, right? Very, very important. Has high expectations. It's a common misconception that students like the easy instructor. They like the ones with high expectations, but then also the ones that can provide critique and feedback and explain the reasons for their critique, right? Doesn't just critique and then walk away, but explains those reasons. And setting those expectations high, very important. Is organized, knows what's going on both in lecture and clinical, and then helping to bridge those gaps to really make it applicable to what the student is learning. Provides timely feedback, looks for opportunities to help me grow. And again, you have to know your students, don't you, in order to know exactly how they need to grow. challenges me in a supportive way, and listens to my concerns. If we're distracted, if we're doing other things, we can't listen to our students' concerns, can we? So having some one-on-one time with students has been identified too as very helpful. Where do we need improvement? It's frustrating when my instructor provides criticism without explanation. We've probably all, on some level, been critiqued without a full explanation of opportunities for improvement. Just, this is what you're doing wrong. You need to change it. Okay, I'm excited to do that, right? Demonstrates a lack of fairness or has favorites in the class. Has anyone been a favorite before? That's awesome. Has anyone not been a favorite before? Yeah, that's not fun. That's not fun. Is inconsistent or unorganized, poor at communication, not supportive, doesn't bother to get to know me. I think what our students are really telling us is they too really appreciate that one-on-one. They love when their faculty demonstrates a sense that they matter. And that's what we do as nurses, right? This comes naturally for us. We know how to do this. It's just shifting from one environment into the next. But we know how to do this, which is exciting. The next several slides, and for the interest of time, I'm going to cut it a little bit short, but I want to bring to your attention that these resources are here and available for you. Improving your charisma. This comes out of evidence-based work. Again, this is 75% I got from my faculty development website about how you can improve your classroom and or clinical charisma. Simple things that we know how to do. Is just, are we doing them on a regular basis? Are we smiling? Are we greeting our students? Are we providing eye contact? Are we listening to really listen and hear our students? Laugh at yourself. I love this one. Laugh at yourself. My students in my evaluations regularly describe me as transparent. If I'm thinking or feeling something, a lot of times, I've learned to kind of soften it as I've moved forward. But there's no guessing with me. My students, they know. They can read me. And I share some things that have happened. I've shared the mistakes I've made in nursing. And I try to keep it real. The other thing, too, super important, is to use different modes of delivery, exactly what Lisa had mentioned. So showing opportunities for learning and then demonstrating. Are we using technology? Are we doing active learning? Are we doing hands-on? Are we doing group work? Are we working with case studies? Things along those lines. Now, I love this one, right? Talk less than your students. But if you stop a minute and think, when can we do this? When can we do this easily? I know that we're on a tight agenda in a lecture class. I know that. Believe me. But when could we do this? When can we implement pieces of this? What do you think? Where could we talk less than our students? I always love starting with questions. And didn't we learn this in nursing school? When you're going to start teaching someone, where do you start? You start with where they're at. Always, always, always. That's the first thing. What do you already know about this? And then you develop it from there, right? Very good. Thank you. I love that. And then also in interconference or post-conference or pre-conference in the clinical environment, we want to encourage our students to talk, right? We want them to be speaking and sharing with us and encouraging that, where we can kind of step back sometimes. The other thing, too, that's really important is asking questions. Exactly what Lisa said. Asking questions. Do we feel compelled to always be the one that answers the question? We might know the answer, but should we always feel compelled to be the one answering? Who else can answer the questions? Absolutely, and it's building those relationships among students. We're engaged with our students when our students are also engaged with one another. Avoid common pitfalls. Again, this is from the literature, evidence-based literature on teaching strategies. It's a lot of what we've already talked about this morning. I'm going to let you go through this on your own, and there's information below. One of the things, too, it's important to try not to confuse your students by giving hurried or unclear instructions. Have any of us in this room had an instructor that tried to do that? They were trying to get in those last few minutes. Deliver a combination of written and verbal directions and check for student understanding. As an example, a whole list here for you. Then strengthening your oral presentation, some of what we've already talked about. Using your voice effectively, videotaping yourself so that you could re-review. Do you have some quirky little behaviors that maybe you need to work on? I'm being videotaped today. Do you think I'm going to review that and go, oh, what was that? Probably so, but right, we do that occasionally so that we can learn from that, so we can grow. And again, just a plug for the faculty development capabilities here at APU. We have individuals that are highly trained, experienced educators that would love to come in the classroom and help work with you on that. So these are opportunities. Commanding attention, knowing your audience, know how to work with your body language. Again, these are all out of evidence-based kind of practice points. How to reiterate the points that you're making. How to do that effectively and in an organized fashion. Very important. Keeping our students engaged during lecture. We've already actually talked about a lot of this already. So what do you do before you have a student in the classroom? What do you do during a classroom engagement? And then what do you do after as far as following up? Have very clear and concise guidelines, making sure you're sticking to those guidelines in the classroom. And then afterwards, I love this. Have students reflect. Have students reflect about what went well in the class, in the clinical. Have them present you with well thought out questions. Very, very important, but reflection is very important. Yeah, I'm winding it down, thank you. Now, graphic organizers, concept mapping, a lot of us might be familiar with this, especially in clinical environments. So these are resources and tools for you. Again, whole bunch of information at the bottom of the slides for you as far as support with that. And again, I have a colleague who teaches primarily at the undergraduate level. I'm taking coursework with her. And she labels this edutainment. She recognizes the need and the value of combining both an educational opportunity with an entertaining opportunity. I am so uncomfortable with that. That is not my style. I am an active, engaged learner when I'm a student, so I just naturally assume everyone else wants to be there to learn, right? Well, not so much the case these days, and we have some competing factors, right? i.e. the computer screen when we're up here in class and our students are there with their computer screen up. You can relate to this. So she's involved with gaming in her classes, and she has found that it's very, very effective for her. Again, list of opportunities for you to consider. So as far as summary, and you have a paper to fill out, what have we learned? Have we learned anything new today? Do we want to engage ourselves with our students as well as our students amongst themselves? And I know that you have heard from your colleagues as far as some different practices, some different opportunities. I would say stay connected with each other and hear what other people are doing. I encourage you to, as clinical faculty, to maybe for a couple hours visit another clinical instructor, clinical site, and see what they're doing with their students, and vice versa, open that opportunity up to someone else, as well as individuals coming into your classroom. And then you visiting other faculty's classrooms to see what opportunities and what styles and different things that are being designed for you. Can I answer any questions that anyone has? My time is up. Thank you for your patience and for your engagement. Do you have any questions? No? Okay, good. Thank you.